In this video, I will be analyzing a 2010 adaptation of Lewis Carroll's novel Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland, through the feminist lens, followed by the Marxist lens. The screenplay was done by Linda Wolverton, and it was directed by Timothy Walter Burton. He is an American director, producer, writer, and animator. First, I will give a brief introduction to the movie. Alice in Wonderland follows a 19-year-old girl named Alice Kingsley, played by Mia Wasikowska, who lives in London in the late 1850s and 60s. After the death of her father, a young man proposes to her at their engagement party. Alice does not know what she wants in life and asks for time to think. After running away from the crowd who awaits her response, she follows a rabbit down a hole, leading to Wonderland. When the mythical creatures in Wonderland realize who she is forced to descend on a journey to slay the Jabberwocky, the Red Queen's beast, to save Wonderland from her tyranny. Some notable characters include the Mad Hatter, played by Johnny Depp, the Red Queen, played by Helena Bonham Carter, and the White Queen, who is played by Anne Hathaway. To describe the aforementioned feminist lens, it investigates how different genders conform to or break away from their roles in society through a political, social, and economic perspective. Specifically, it examines how women interact with their environment and how they are received in the media by their peers. When examining the movie through the feminist lens, it is evident that Alice in Wonderland is a feminist film that explores how women can challenge social conventions by emphasizing the importance of a woman's autonomy and empowering them to break barriers that hinder their ability to flourish in society to improve their quality of life. In the movie, the Mad Hatter gets captured by the Red Queen and Alice decides to save him. However, Mayor the dog advises that she should avoid the extra conflict as it is not part of her destiny and will not lead her any closer to defeating the Red Queen. She responds,
"From the moment I fell down that rabbit hole, I've been told what I must do and who I must be. I've been shrunk, stretched, scratched, and stuffed into a teapot. I've been accused of being Alice and of not being Alice, but this is my dream. I'll decide where it goes from here."
This scene is particularly cathartic, as it is the turning point where Alice decides she will no longer blindly perform tasks just because her peers tell her it is a part of her destiny. She does not care that she is supposed to save Wonderland because she is the chosen one. She wants to save her friend from imprisonment because she cares about him and wants to correct her mistakes. Alice's choice to save the Mad Hatter is an example of the importance of her autonomy, as she would have lost her friend if she did not defy the revolutionists' strict plan and lost the battle later in the movie without the Mad Hatter's help. Another example of the importance of a woman's autonomy and Alice breaking social barriers is when she rejects Hamish's proposal, opting to make a deal with his father, her late father's business partner. She describes her amendments to her father's previous plan by expanding his trade route to China instead of Sumatra and Borneo, as they have a foothold in Hong Kong. This ultimately results in Alice earning her position as an apprentice in the company. Despite the social expectations of women in the late 18th century, Alice's choice to defy gender norms of marrying and having children or working domestic labor allows her to explore the life she desires instead of settling for an unfulfilling life to satisfy the expectations of her peers. To summarize, when looking at Alice in Wonderland through a feminist lens, one can conclude that it is important for women to make their own decisions and break constrictive social barriers, as it will set a precedent where more women feel empowered to exercise their autonomy and live the life they choose. This is seen through Alice's choice to correct her mistake and save the Mad Hatter from his imprisonment under the Red Queen, and her ultimate choice to reject Hamish's proposal in favor of becoming a business apprentice in her late father's trade company. Moving on to the Marxist lens, it is based on the theories of Karl Marx, centered around class disparities in a society that are composed of the lower class, the middle class, and the elite. The oppression of the lower classes eventually leads to a revolution led by the intellectuals and a social reform where the previous elites no longer hold their status and a new low-class group is established. Alice in Wonderland expresses the importance of challenging authority figures and being critical of their actions, as their entitlement can lead to the marginalization of the lower classes and corruption within the elite. The Red Queen attempts to have members of her court beheaded during the beheading of the Mad Hatter for trying to conform to her beauty standards by wearing fake implants. The Mad Hatter uses the chaos of the reveal to his advantage, quoting,
"The abused and enslaved in the Red Queen's court. All of you, stand up and fight. Rise up against the bloody Red Queen,"
which sparks the revolution to defeat the Red Queen. He chooses this moment to encourage the lower class to fight back, as the Queen exhibits her disinterest in the well-being of the lives of her court, the people whom she is closest to, thereby showing that she is not fit to rule fairly. If the lower class had not been critical of the Queen's actions, the revolution would not have happened and the lower class would continue to be marginalized. Additionally, the defeat of the Red Queen will put the White Queen in power and eliminate the oppression of the lower class. When the White Queen tries to reason with the Red Queen instead of resorting to fighting a war, the Red Queen quotes,
"No! It is my 12! I am the eldest!"
It is clear that the Red Queen only desires power and not the responsibilities of being a queen, as she is comfortable with harming others during the battle and killing Alice if it means maintaining her status. This is an example of the corruption occurring amongst the elite and the necessity of a revolution, as marginalized people will continue to be oppressed under her power. In short, when analyzing Alice in Wonderland through the Marxist lens, one can conclude that challenging authority figures when they abuse their power leads to the liberation of the oppressed and therefore the betterment of society, as withholding to do so will lead to the normalized oppression of the lower class. This is seen with the Red Queen's willingness to murder her court for lying to her and refusing to negotiate with the White Queen for the betterment of Wonderland when she tries to avoid violence during the revolution. Moving on to film conventions, due to the mystical nature of Wonderland, each set has its color palette that communicates the mood. The most notable ones were London, which is depicted to be gloomy with gray skies and plenty of shrubbery. This gives the audience a sense of neutrality because the setting is mundane and Alice finally makes her way to Wonderland. She is surrounded by a forest of mushrooms and flowers with faces. The sky is also overcast, but the unusual dark nature of the shots leads the audience to feel an urgent sense of unease. This is furthered by Alice's size, as the audience sees the forest through her eyes, and she is the size of a mouse. The castle is surrounded by jagged brown mountains and lifeless land. The castle itself is red cream color, and the building is intricately designed with arches and plenty of towers. Additionally, the red color is often associated with blood, passion, violence, and warfare. This gives a sense of discomfort and unease to the audience, as one can infer that the Red Queen is cruel due to the colors and her inability to care for the land surrounding her. In contrast to the Red Queen's castle, the White Queen's castle is made of bright white marble and surrounded by cherry blossom trees, which symbolize life alongside death and beauty and violence, which can be equated to harmony. Additionally, it is positioned in an open space surrounded by green grass, which allows plenty of bright light to make the castle appear to glow. This influences the audience to associate their White Queen's castle with being good and harmonious. Alice's costumes can be examined through the feminist lens, as they were designed to change throughout the film as she slowly becomes the Alice she is destined to be. She rejects societal fashion standards imposed on women in favor of clothes that make her feel more like herself. The movie begins with her refusing to wear a corset and stockings under her bright blue dress, as she rejects the societal norm of such undergarments while still conforming to social expectations through the style of her dress. Alice finally dares to make her own decisions, as in her last scene, she wears a blue jacket and tie with a skirt that looks like a suit. She finally has taken her life into her own hands and will live the life she desires. Her character development in defying gender norms is shown through her costumes, as she begins as slightly defiant, yet apologetic and willing to conform to the opposite end of the spectrum, and dresses as she likes because she is confident in herself and her right to live as she pleases. Overall, Alice in Wonderland is a good movie, as it is visually pleasing and it is evident that the actors were having fun with their roles. Alice's costumes were perfectly designed and the atmosphere was well depicted with the use of setting and lighting. Ultimately, I recommend the movie to everyone, as it is a feminist film that encourages its audience to challenge authority and practice their autonomy.